Good afternoon. My name is Michael from Edge Nutraceuticals. Today I'm working with our response team to bring you the first in a series of free informational videos from the archives of the internationally recognized naturopathic physician and biophysicist, affectionately known as Doc Bruce. For the past 30 years as a physician, armed also with a PhD in biophysics, his focus has been centered upon a more complete understanding of the structure, dynamics, and remediation of disease from an all-natural homeopathic point of view. His approach has been to seek homeostasis from the perspective of an organism's DNA. For a more comprehensive biography of Doc Bruce, please see the link at the bottom of this video. The content of this series has been designed to chronicle and explain some of the more recent and absolutely amazing breakthroughs in alternative healthcare, most of which have come to us by means of homeopathic medicine. If you happen to be unfamiliar with homeopathy as a science, you need to know that it was first developed nearly 2 centuries ago by the prominent Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, who is also known as the father of experimental pharmacology. To many people in the know, homeopathic medicine still represents a viable, practical, and effective healthcare modality. Interestingly enough, homeopathy is currently the medical protocol of choice with most of the monarchs and some of the wealthiest royal families throughout Great Britain, Europe, and Asia. Even today, much of the British aristocracy openly embrace homeopathic medicine as opposed to many of the more conventional and modern healthcare protocols. Most of them are serious patrons of what was once referred to as the Royal London Homeopathic Hospital, in that they are not only patients of the naturopathic physicians, but they openly advocate and support the entire homeopathic healthcare system. Even today, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth is a patient of Dr. Peter Fisher, who is the medical director of that self-same Royal London Hospital. Not to be forgotten is a report from the Huffington Post that quotes the naturopathic physician Sir John Weir, who was physician to 4 generations of British monarchs, including King George VI, who reigned up until the early 1950s. Listen to what Sir John had to say about homeopathy, and I quote, "I believe that what prevents men from accepting the homeopathic principles is ignorance. But ignorance is criminal when human lives are at stake. No honest man faced with the facts of homeopathy can refuse to accept it." End quote. Now, when considering all of this information, it begs the question, what do some of the oldest and wealthiest families in the world, what do they know that we do not? If in your case, or the case of your family, you have found some conventional medical protocols to be wanting, or if you have found that the many side effects inherent in pharmacological solutions to be unacceptable, we encourage you to do your homework. Increasingly throughout the world, many governments have formally recognized homeopathy as accepted medical treatment. Some have actually formalized homeopathic medicine as an integral part of their national healthcare systems, and the list is impressive. For instance, to name just a few, in Latin America, there are the countries of Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Cuba, Ecuador, Costa Rica, and Mexico. In Asia, there are the governments of Japan, Singapore, Taiwan, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, the Ukraine, and even Russia. And then there's the Middle East. There's Israel, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Iran. We spoke of Great Britain, which of course includes Australia and Canada. Homeopathy in Europe is also recognized in Belgium, Germany, Austria, Denmark, Hungary, Portugal, Greece, and Switzerland, again to name just a few. All in all, the International Homeopathic Medical Society, known as the LMHI, currently includes 77 countries worldwide. So homeopathy, as an alternative healthcare system, is indeed a force to be reckoned with. And make no mistake, homeopathy works. In many cases, it provides effective and tangible healthcare solutions. That is why in some circles homeopathy can be considered to be somewhat controversial. Often it goes head to head against conventional medical and pharmacological protocols. And we all know that in arenas where there's large profit involved, truth and fact can often become clouded and even distorted, especially where corporate self-interest becomes the dominant motivating factor rather than worrying about a patient's overall health and well-being. We invite you to do your own research on not only the history of homeopathy, but on its current relevance in the way that it remediates disease and it provides hope for those who have truly suffered long enough. But make no mistake, homeopathy has a voice, and it's a serious voice that speaks very loudly to many. Now, what about us, especially in terms of this particular discussion? You see, in recent years, there have been some very significant homeopathic breakthroughs in areas that are of concern to many people. One in particular has to do with one of the most insidious infectious diseases that our culture has ever seen. Specifically, we're speaking of the spread and proliferation of Lyme disease and the need that we have to stop it before it stops you. If by chance you've never heard of it, or if you've perhaps heard of it but never had any firsthand knowledge or experience with it, it's just a matter of time until you do. It's just a matter of time until a close friend or a family member has been stricken by this horrible disorder. For decades, Lyme disease has been considered to be a tick-borne bacterial infection that results from the bite of an infected black-legged deer tick. But recent research has determined that transmission of the disease can also be directly linked to not only ticks, but infected lice, fleas, and mosquitoes. That is why in recent years, Lyme disease has migrated from the rural and wooded areas into the urban environments and the cities. In terms of escalation and the actual transmission of the disease, it has also been discovered that the Lyme bacteria, Borrelia burgdorferi, can also be transmitted through saliva, sexual contact, blood transfusions, breast milk, organ transplants, and tragically can even be transmitted in utero to an unborn child. That is why the Centers for Disease Control in recent years has been shouting from the treetops that Lyme disease is the fastest growing vector-borne disease in the Western world and is quickly approaching pandemic levels throughout much of the continental United States. Currently, over 3 million people in America suffer from or have been horribly scarred by Lyme disease. The number of reported cases has tripled in the last decade. Currently in the U.S., more than 300,000 people a year are diagnosed with the disease, and more than 65,000 cases are diagnosed throughout Europe. In addition to all of these statistics is the fact that in recent years, the disease is at the center of great controversy. There are many arguments, there are many conflicting ideas, therefore there is much debate. The turmoil is centered upon the fact that there are many discrepancies and contraindications concerning its diagnosis, its treatment, and its short and long-term prognosis. This is particularly true with regard to the infection's chronic and persistent forms. Tragically, many patients are misdiagnosed, and their disorders go on to ruin their health and ruin their quality of life for years and even decades. As the controversy rages on, the infection has unfortunately left in its wake a growing number of chronically infected patients who are often left without any hope or any adequate medical care. In our next series of videos, we will focus in upon some of the latest homeopathic breakthroughs in the treatment and remediation of Lyme disease. And the good news is, there really is good news. For those who have been consistently disappointed and let down by conventional antibiotic protocols such as doxycycline or amoxicillin or any of their aliases, or if you have been unsuccessfully submitted to any of the anti-parasitic drugs, please don't despair. There have been some major breakthroughs with homeopathy. Recent homeopathic approaches are proving far more successful than the one-dimensional antibiotic protocols. In our next video, we will discuss successful alternative therapies that have been restoring quality of life to some who have been suffering for decades. With Doc Bruce at the helm, Edge Nutraceuticals can provide hope for so many who have been suffering from Lyme disease and its many cousins.